frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's made his move.
Oh, is that a blunder?
And you can just see the evaluation bar just zoom all the way down.
Get ready for an intense Armageddon. Now, the finale to this thing sent chat into meltdown. But before we get to that, we're going to see this epic chess plus that clip, but some scene setting here. So Magnus Carlsen is playing with black against Alireza Firouzja with white. This is the grand final, Armageddon. They did bids to see who would play black, who would play white. This is what they bid on screen, and because Magnus went lower on the clock, it means he gets black. He only has to draw to take a victory, all the pressure on Alireza in a must-win situation. And they've gone to Armageddon because in this grand final of the Julius Baer Generation Cup, they couldn't be separated after 4 awesome games I'll have to cover another time. So Alireza here with white, he kicks off with e4. What can he do? Clock time's on the left. c5 from Magnus, and you can already see he's down on time, 6 minutes. They get no increment. If you lose on time, you get flagged, that's it, you're done, you lose. So we get knight f3, e6, and now b3 from Alireza, a change from a Sicilian game that they played earlier. Now after a6 from Magnus, we get a double fianchetto from Alireza. And Magnus says, alright, you want to give me the centre? I'm going to take the centre. And by playing like this, Magnus is also accepting an isolated queen's pawn structure, as we'll see. So we get bishop g2, knight f6, castles, bishop e7, all very normal looking. And now Alireza, he does fight for the centre here with pawn d4. Magnus just castles. Both knights develop. And now knight a4, they say don't put your knight on the edge of the board, but this one does do a specific job. It harasses that pawn, you know, looks at this square as well. Maybe the bishop can come this way later as well. So we see captures, Magnus is provoked, the knight recaptures, but here we see the point of Magnus's play, that even though he's got this structural weakness, he's got activity. Bishop g4 highlights it. It's an awkward move to deal with. You know, if you go f3, well, it's a bit ugly. You block the bishop, you weaken the king some more. Coming back to the moves played, if you go queen d2 to dodge the pin, well, you're running into knight e4, or not pin, but attack. You're also then, if the knight takes, going to lose a tempo recapturing. So what should white do? Well, captures here is the best move according to the engine, but you do then repair the black structure somewhat. Alireza maybe felt he couldn't force winning chances in that kind of structure. So he plays the awkward, ugly looking move of knight to e2, walking into a self pin. Magnus goes rook fe8, saying, okay, I'm going to target that one some more. And now Alireza decides to go f3. So Magnus is already about a pawn and a half better here, but Alireza's in a must-win situation. So Magnus retreats the bishop. He could have gone to f5, but maybe he didn't like the idea of g4, harassing, allowing Alireza to attack. Now we see bishop e3, covering some newly weakened dark squares, you know, not coming here unfortunately, does step into here, but now b5 drives back the knight, and Alireza doesn't hop forward. You know, he could come into here, but it gets a bit complicated after pawn d4. Black should be slightly better, so Alireza retreats the knight here, black's still better, and the white pieces just a bit on each other's toes. We get rook c8 played, pressure down the c-file, the bishop drops back, out of the line of the rook. Now we see bishop a3, opening the rook, looking at these dark squares, and rook b1 now played to stop any bishop b2, which could be played in future, but now knight b4. And the pressure on the white position here is huge. Look at the knight, look at the rook, converging on this pawn. Bishop f5 coming, and so g4 really had to be played to fight against that threat. Alireza goes rook e1, look at the eval bar react, and this is where we get the reaction of the commentary team.
It's frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's made his move.
Oh, is that a blunder?
And you can just see the evaluation bar just zoom all the way down in Black's favour.
Now, what's the problem with this move? Well, it's not actually the immediate bishop f5. Whilst that's still a good move, White does have the knight d4 resource. You hit the bishop and defend the pawn, and after retreats, you're just about holding on. You're not actually losing this pawn on the spot. So what Black should do instead is not straightforward. Do pause if you want to try and find the move here, which is a winning move. You know, it's +4, well, -4, so a 4-pawn advantage to Black. So the move you can play here is pawn to d4, an awesome kind of distraction sacrifice. So if the knight captures, then this rook drops. This is the problem. If the knight moves away, well, the pawn drops here. And if you take with the bishop, well, now the knight can no longer come to the d4 square. So after bishop f5, hitting this pawn, you've got real problems. You can't cover the attack. You know, no rook c1, you get chopped off, etc. And finally, if queen captures, well, the immediate knight c2 comes. You've left the defense of the pawn. You fork those pieces. So a very cool move. But Magnus didn't spot it. He does have less time. He went for pawn h5 instead. Running this one down, looking to create weaknesses. Now queen d2 from Alireza. This one no longer working because now you can take with the knight and the queen covers this knight here. So we see knight takes on c2, now played by Magnus instead. A new tactic still in the air. Shows how good the Black position is. Because after queen recaptures, b4 comes, taking advantage of this pin. Queen d3, now no bishop b5, which looks really deadly because the knight can take. So you do just capture that knight. Knight recaptures, these rooks come off, rook takes back, and bishop b4. Huge pressure on Alireza's position. But after bishop d4, queen a5, Alireza does have rook e3. He's hanging on by a thread here. Now Magnus, he goes for a simplification and takes on c3. He gives Alireza the bishop pair. Is this a good move? Well, he picks up a pawn. He's going to try and simplify the position. Can Alireza complicate things? And what he does here is just go for some attacking moves. You know, if he tries to defend this pawn, say with b4, well then there's bishop b5. Magnus starts getting initiative. Not ideal. So Alireza goes h3, gives the king some room. You know, it's so drafty around the king. This is one of Alireza's problems, and prepares to push g4. The queen takes the pawn though. Magnus picking up a second pawn here. Now we get g4. Alireza trying to attack, but queen c4 is a great move, offering the exchange. Alireza ducks, and now d4, Magnus gives back a pawn, but to force off these queens, because now it comes with check. The king goes away and these queens are forced off the board. Magnus is now a pawn up in this endgame. So rook c2 played. He's pressuring along this rank. This is the problem with the exposed king. And Alireza now, you know, the top engine move here is rook c3, trade off, but he has to go for chances. So he invades with this rook, but now bishop b5, and this threat is huge to bring the bishop back, win this one due to the pin. So Alireza has to meekly return, cover the f1 square, and Magnus starts activating the knight. You know, Alireza never chopped it off, ruined the pawn structure. He wants to keep pieces on, so he goes bishop e5, covers f4, now f6 played, bishop d6, and here Magnus simplifies the position. So you'll see the eval bar react, knight e3 played. He had other moves like h4, a5, but he's just going to get pieces off the board here because now he gets bishop f1 with the rook distracted, and we reach this position with opposite coloured bishops and Magnus a pawn up. What can Alireza do here? Well, he has to try and generate an attack, and that's what this move does. Threatens rook e7, Magnus checks, the king retreats, and rook d2. There's a threat now to go h4, deliver checkmate. This rook cuts the king, this square is taken, so you have to kick on with the pawn, give the king some room on f3. This is how the game proceeded, but now this pawn drops. Surely Magnus can't lose this one. Well, bishop e7, a last throw of the dice for Alireza. He wants to box in this black king, look for checkmates. Bishop g2 check played. King e3, and now rook d1, and Alireza is just not quite in time to take this pawn, create threats. Then you get checked from behind, you're losing your rook. So instead, he goes for king f2, stepping out of the e-file, but now Magnus advances the h-pawn. What if you go f5, try and shut the trap, still go for this one? Well then king g7, you know, Magnus is just in time, covering all the threats. So instead, the bishop takes on f6, but Magnus takes here, giving the king a nice escape square on g6. We get bishop e5, rook d2 check, king e1, not the most precise, but Magnus getting the job done. Because if you capture, the pawn kicks on, unstoppable queen, and this should be a draw. There's nothing that white can do. So instead, we see rook e7 check, the king goes. Now this rook is captured. What else to do for Magnus? He had nothing. Alireza, he had nothing. f2, pushes on, prepares to queen, and now the only way to hold a draw here is with rook g7 check. The king steps this way so as not to step into the line of this, and now you can go here, and after queens you check, you pick up the queen, should be a draw. But what's the point in a draw? Alireza has to win. So he goes g5, runs this one down, the queen is made, but now check. The king goes, check, and here we see resignation from Alireza. Why? Well, the pawn is simply about to drop, and this is, of course, just a completely lost endgame. 2 pawns, and you don't even need them. The queen will win out. So coming back here, this was the final position. Magnus wins the grand final, and then this is what he had to say in a classic interview that just sent the whole chat into meltdown, right? So check out this clip. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you again on a future video. Thanks very much for watching.
When do you expect the next generation with players like Firouzja, Gukesh to take over?
It's kind of up to them really. Like they have what it takes, but the final boss of chess is usually pretty tough.
I heard.